Have you ever wondered why most Christians go to church on Sunday instead of the Sabbath, which is Saturday? It's a fascinating story of change that unfolded over centuries, blending tradition, authority, and even politics. Let's dive into the history of how the Sabbath became Sunday. Our journey begins way back, around the year 116 AD, with a Roman bishop named Sixtus I. At this time, Christians, especially those with Jewish roots, observed Passover on the 14th day of the first Jewish month, no matter what day of the week it fell on. But Sixtus had a different idea for his church in Rome. He proposed that the Roman Christians should celebrate the resurrection, not on the Jewish Passover date, but always on the Sunday that followed it. This was a small but significant step. He wasn't forcing anyone, just suggesting a new practice for his local community. His successor, Telesphorus, who led the church until about 138 AD, continued this trend. He added more structure to the Sunday celebration, making it a more formal and festive occasion within the Roman Church. Think of it like this: Sixtus planted a seed, and Telesphorus helped it sprout. They were laying the groundwork for Sunday to become a special day, distinct from the Jewish traditions that were still very influential in the early church. This wasn't a global change yet, just a local custom developing in the heart of the Roman Empire. Following Telesphorus, leaders like Hyginus and later Pius I, who was bishop around 142 AD, really solidified this new tradition in Rome. Pius officially decreed that the annual celebration of the resurrection must be held on a Sunday. This made the Roman practice official within its own jurisdiction. He essentially took the custom started by Sixtus and Telesphorus and turned it into a rule for his church. Sunday was now officially the primary festival day in Rome, marking a clear break from the quartodeciman practice, which was the name for observing Passover on the 14th day of Nisan. But this Roman rule didn't sit well with everyone, especially Christians in the East. This led to one of early Christianity's first major East-West conflicts. Around 158 AD, the respected elder Polycarp, a disciple of the Apostle John himself, traveled to Rome to meet with its bishop, Anicetus. Polycarp represented the churches of Asia Minor, which held firmly to the tradition of observing Passover on the 14th of Nisan, as they believed they had received it directly from the apostles. Anicetus, on the other hand, insisted on the Roman custom of a Sunday celebration. The two men debated, each holding to their own tradition. What's remarkable is that despite their disagreement, they remained friends. They respected each other's positions, shared communion, and parted ways peacefully. Anicetus even honored Polycarp by asking him to lead the Eucharist service in Rome. This was a moment of mutual respect, a recognition that different regions could have different customs without breaking fellowship. Unfortunately, that spirit of respect didn't last. A few decades later, around 198 AD, the issue flared up again, but this time with a much harsher tone. The Roman bishop was now Victor I, a man with a very different temperament. He was determined to impose the Roman Sunday custom on all churches, everywhere. When the Eastern churches, led by Polycrates of Ephesus, refused to abandon their ancient practice, Victor took a drastic step. He declared them excommunicated, essentially trying to cut them off from the rest of the Christian world. This move was met with widespread criticism, even from Western bishops who agreed with Victor's theology. They felt he had gone too far, that he was arrogant and was disrupting the peace of the church over a non-essential issue. This event was a major turning point. It showed the growing power and ambition of the Roman bishop, who was now not just leading his own church but attempting to dictate policy to all of Christianity. Victor's attempt to force conformity was a sign of things to come. As the 3rd century closed and the 4th began, the focus began to shift from just the annual Easter celebration to the weekly day of worship. A key moment was the Council of Elvira in Spain. Around 305 AD, this local council issued a canon that is quite startling when you first read it. It decreed that if anyone living in a city missed church for 3 consecutive Sundays, they would be temporarily excommunicated. This was a brand new development. For the first time, we see a legal penalty attached to attending Sunday service. It was no longer just a custom or a tradition. It was becoming a legal obligation within the church. This shows how Sunday observance was evolving from a celebratory day into a required duty enforced by the church's own legal structures. The council's decision marked a significant step in institutionalizing Sunday worship. The transformation took a giant leap forward under Bishop Sylvester I in the early 4th century. By this time, the Roman Church's influence was immense. Sylvester officially transferred the solemnity and rest of the Sabbath to Sunday. To make the break with Jewish origins even clearer, he decided to rename the days of the week. Instead of using the Jewish names like the first day or the Sab, he decreed that Sunday should be called the Lord's Day, and the other days would follow a new naming convention. The Sabbath day, Saturday, was to be kept as a fast day, a practice he defended against the Eastern churches who did not fast on Saturdays. Sylvester's decrees were a powerful statement, using his authority to fundamentally reshape the Christian week and entrench the primacy of Sunday. Now, all of these church decrees were one thing, but the ultimate game-changer came from outside the church, from the Roman emperor himself, Constantine. In the year 321 AD, Constantine issued a landmark civil law. It declared that on the venerable day of the sun, all judges, city people, and artisans must rest. Farmers were given an exception so that the food supply wouldn't be affected. Why the day of the sun? Constantine was a shrewd political operator. The term appealed to both Christians, who were increasingly calling Sunday the Lord's Day, and to the many pagans in his empire who worshipped the sun god, Sol Invictus. This law was likely influenced by church leaders like Sylvester, who were close to the emperor. By making Sunday a mandatory day of rest for the entire empire, Constantine's law elevated the church's practice to the law of the land. It integrated the Christian Sunday into the very fabric of Roman civil society. And so, the process was complete. What began as a local Roman custom to distinguish its Easter celebration from the Jewish Passover evolved over 2 centuries into a universal, legally mandated day of rest. Through the persistent efforts of Roman bishops, from the early suggestions of Sixtus to the authoritative decrees of Sylvester, and finally cemented by the civil power of Emperor Constantine, the authority of the Sabbath was transferred to Sunday. The Roman Church had successfully established its authority over the churches, shaping the rhythm of life for Christians for the next 1700 years. The weekly cycle of work and worship that many people take for granted today was forged in this long and complex history of faith, power, and politics. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey through history interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. See you next time.